Good evening. So happy to be back. Rebecca was just saying this is our 10th season of School Psyched Podcast, which is just totally wild. And so happy anybody who's able to join us tonight or watch us later, kicking off the start of the next school year. I know I am buried with all sorts of kindergartners who are learning how to be kindergartners and lots of behavior problems, lots of transfer cases, and tracking down paperwork for transfers. So shout out to another school psychologist in some other state named Rachel, who was able to get me files so I don't have to test yet another child who is transferring in. So appreciate all of the school psych assistance that we give each other out there. But my name is Rachel. I'm a school psychologist in Maryland. I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca, who is going to talk about how you can participate if you're joining us live tonight. Rebecca.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to this very first episode of our 10th season. Hopefully you've been here before with us and you know a little bit about how to participate. But for anyone new out there, welcome to you as well. We're excited to have you, and I'd love to share. We have 2 Facebook pages, School Psyched, Your School Psychologist, and the School Psych podcast page. If you're on Facebook, you can look up either of those pages and you can comment right under the post for this episode, or you can message us, inbox message, and I'll be looking for notifications from there. Also, we're still hanging in there on X/Twitter, and I did tweet out the promo for this episode tonight. So feel free to please tweet back at us on Twitter, and you can use the hashtag Psyched Podcast. So I will search for notifications for Psyched Podcast over there. And also, if you're watching us live, or even if you're watching us after a little bit of a delay, however long of a delay, your comments will sync right up to the YouTube video if you're signed into your YouTube account. So please feel free to comment there, ask questions, or share your experiences. And we'll be looking for the live comments. And also over time, we get notifications of comments that are added later. So whenever you're watching or listening, please do chime in. We love to hear from you. None of us is as skilled as all of us, and we just make each other so much richer and more productive in our roles by learning from one another. So I'm looking forward to all of the conversation. And I am a school psychologist, but I'm currently working as a licensed therapist, and I'm working this year in my doctoral program. I'm working to become a clinical psychologist, and I will be in a school one day this year. And I'm very excited. I'll be doing some groups in elementary and middle schools. So that's going to be a very interesting thing. So I just wanted to share that. I'll keep you updated on how that's going. It's going to be very interesting to be sort of an outsider coming into a school to work with children. So I'm just looking forward to getting to know the school psychs, hopefully in the building, and the school counselors, and running hopefully some helpful groups. So keep you posted on that. That's my update. And now I'm going to pass it off to Eric, who's going to introduce himself and also our wonderful guest.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. And we're all wishing you well as you start this next year of your doctoral program, and all the school psychs out there who are working hard and already in the thick of it this semester and this school year. My name's Eric. I'm a school psychologist in Connecticut, and I am starting my 35th year as a school psychologist, which is just hard to imagine looking back. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I still love it, and I still am proud to be part of the School Psych podcast, and excited that we're starting our 10th season as well. That's amazing to me. And we are excited to have Jenna Washburn with us. This is Jenna's second time as a guest. So welcome, Jenna. And we just a little bit about her. Jenna has her EDS degree in school psychology and a master's in general psychology. And she has been a school psychologist, but also is the founder of ClickReport, which is a company dedicated to helping school psychologists and people in the field manage their time and streamline report writing and case management. So a little bit about ClickReport. She's been in business for 7 years or so right now, I guess. And it's a web-based software kind of program made for clinicians and school psychologists to write reports more efficiently. And from the information on her Facebook page, they've generated over 50,000 student reports and have over 1,000 members. So that's really exciting. And we're excited to have you here. And it was really fun for Rachel and I to run into you at NASP last February. And I think it was your dad who was helping you at your booth as well, which I just thought was really sweet. So, so welcome, Jenna. We're glad to have you back.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And yeah, my dad comes with me to NASP every year. So that's always like a really fun thing for us.
That's
and it was
awesome.
so good to see you guys too.
Well, so you've been in business for a while now. Tell us what kinds of things have been happening with your company for the last few years and how you've grown and how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first time I was on this podcast, it was 2018, so quite a long time ago. And a lot has definitely changed. For the first 3 years, I stayed as a school psychologist and I was doing ClickReport on the side and kind of just coding as much as I possibly could on the side and making new things for the site. And then it got really, really popular. And I realized, okay, if I really want to make a difference here, I'm going to need to dedicate my full time to this because the feedback I was getting was just so wonderful. And I just felt really, really fortunate to be in a position where it was like, okay, I can really do something here. Like I can help a lot of people, help more people. And that was really powerful to me. I really love being a school psychologist and I love actually being in the field. So that's been a bit of a change for me and just kind of like staying focused on, just ClickReport and the website and building things for people is also wonderful. But I actually still take school psychology positions with a contracting company just so I can still stay engaged with students because it is something that's just a passion of mine as well.
That's impressive that you're juggling that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important too, because as I'm developing stuff for people, you guys know stuff changes all the time. So there's regulation changes, there's just changes in the way that, we have to do things. And I really want to stay engaged so that I can continue to make stuff that's actually relevant and helpful and useful. And we actually have over 3,500 school psychologists on the site now. So I'm serving a lot of people with that. And it's kind of like, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of pressure too. And I'm really, really, really wanting to make sure the stuff that I'm putting out there is very useful and helpful and continues to be a great tool for people.
I get that. I feel like, when I look at old reports that I've written, like my style, everything changes so much just based on all the other things that kind of change around us as school psychs. And like you said, changing regulations and whatnot. I remember, so the last time you were on, I was just so blown away and impressed with your drive and initiative, being like such a young school psychologist and early career. And then you're like, I'm going to go start my own company. I'm going to learn coding and teach myself how to do this and just make, and I'm just like, wow, like, so impressive.
Yeah.
And so it's really exciting to see now how that's grown and really paid off. And it seems like you really love it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I do. And honestly, I just listen to what people are saying and then I try to adapt in that way. I really like, Rebecca, what you say as far as like, we're so much better as a group and as a unit and we can all help each other. And one of the things that people said, they kind of got some feedback like, you are a new school psychologist. So, how are you creating all these things? And what I did is I took that to heart. I said, you're right. I'm new. I need to get some feedback. So I actually built a group of school psychologists who had some more experience than myself. And I really have this nice network of people. So whenever I'm making something new, we all meet as a group and we discuss it together. And the smart templates are essentially made like that. So somebody will create kind of the first portion of it. And then we have a roundtable discussion and go back and forth so that I can pull from people who have more experience. But yeah, in general, that's kind of how it's worked the whole time. I get feedback and then I run with it and I try to just keep making things that people are requesting and asking for.
That's amazing. I love that model. And I'm just So I'm also so impressed. And I'm just wondering about how, like, so you spent some time being a full-time school psychologist and developing this, it sounds like originally for yourself. I remember our 2018 episode, but honestly, it was so long ago. I need to go back myself. Um, but I remember you said the impetus was like at first to really just help streamline your own report writing process and like as a tool kind of for you. Remind us, how did you go from that to finding a team of people to run things by and like and creating this entire, what was that leap like? It sounds like it had to be a leap of faith and also just energy and commitment and time. Can you remind us a little bit about how that was in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. So luckily, I was working in Georgetown, South Carolina at the time, and I had a group of school psychologists that were also in the district. So I had 10 other school psychologists that were working with me. And I really liked how our district was because we would always have once every other week a big meeting with everybody so that we could all get together. And some of it was saying, this was so hard and getting like support in different areas, which I think it was very important too. But in general, we had just a really nice, close-knit group. And I started making these things for myself and trying to figure it out just to speed up. And I shared that with that group of 10 school psychologists, just saying like, hey, this has really helped me. Why don't you check it out and see if it can help you? And their response the first time they saw it was just like, they couldn't believe it. And I was just like something I was doing. And I think that coding for me just is something that kind of comes natural. But their reaction was like, no, you need to like get this out to the world. Like you need to make this something. And that was so special to me because I'm like, wow, this incredible group of people is like so motivating and so wonderful. And they're the ones that really pushed me to do it. And I did. I was like, okay, let's try it. And I just kind of started throwing it out there and getting feedback. And I just kind of kept going with it. Like, I don't know, the internal drive to me was like the coding was so, it felt so nice in my mind. I don't know if that makes sense, but it would be like I would code something and I would just hit that total sense of flow. And it's just, I loved it. Like, I love being a school psychologist too. But I think that to me was like something that I unlocked where it was kind of addictive. And I just really enjoyed it. So, and then to move to the group of people, I really tapped my grad school program and I asked them. So my professors and everything like that, I went to the Citadel in Charleston, which was a wonderful grad program. And I really just went back and asked people that were in my grad program, professors, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What would you recommend? And then I hooked up with a few people through that. And then also a bunch of people that I met at NASP. And through that, I had people come up to the booth and they would just talk about the program. And I was like, well, that's a really good idea. Let's do this together. Would you be willing to help me work on this? And that's kind of how that went. I don't know if it was a leap of faith. It was more like I felt so fortunate to be able to work with people who also had great ideas, but I had the coding part. So then I could kind of bring it to fruition.
I love how you had your like two loves of this passion for coding and this passion for school psychology, and you're able to find a way to combine both of those. I feel like few people are able to find a niche and be able to do that. So that's really cool and exciting to hear. I'm wondering, since the last time we talked, something has changed in the world other than like a global pandemic and all that fun stuff that we went through as well. But AI, I'm wondering about AI. Do you see if there's some AI like report writing programs now? Is that competition for you? Is AI something that you're using or something that you might use in the future? How do you see like AI changing what you're doing? Has it been changing things or not at all? Like, I'm just curious about what you think.
Yeah, so the nerd in me really has enjoyed AI, right? So the second it came out, I was like, okay, this is really cool. I want to learn more. I want to get to know like what it can do. And that's been, a process in like my coding journey. So just kind of learning more about it and getting to know the difference between, that and more of a traditional type of coding. The school psychologist in me, I would say, was initially more nervous and more like, how are we going to abide by HIPAA and FERPA compliance? And same with the business owner me, was nervous about that piece. So the HIPAA and FERPA compliance, I have played around with AI enough to know that it's like, okay, this is going to be a hard thing to integrate into my current platform because first and foremost, I have always had HIPAA and FERPA compliance as kind of a cornerstone of the company. And that's always been something that's very important to me and very important to anyone that uses it. So I've been a little bit hesitant to kind of go down the path of figuring it out in a way to kind of integrate it into the current site. And I kind of also knew that while I love to code and I'm interested in learning more about coding, it's out of my realm of ability to integrate it into the site without assistance. I will say I have a fun announcement though, that I have been working with some developers who are much, much more able to integrate AI and everything like that. And I believe that I'm going to be able to do it in a HIPAA and FERPA compliant way because I have some really, really talented coders out of Silicon Valley that have been interested in working with ClickReport. So it is something that will come along, I think, in the future. But I always am going to have my current version available. I think one of the most frustrating things for me on any platform is when you're like super used to something and it's working and it's going great and it's really helping. And then all of a sudden they like totally change how everything works. And you're like, no. And then it becomes like this dreadful experience of like, am I going to have to relearn something? And I think one of the things we get on ClickReport that is always a great thing to hear is just how user friendly it is and how like kind of out of the box. So like when somebody uses it and tries it for the first time, they're like, oh, okay, I've got it. I figured it out. Like it's not like a huge learning curve and they're really comfortable really quickly. So I never want that piece of it to change. The way that I see integrating AI is going to be more like using it for different tools. And I always want it to be an option because I think people differ on how they feel about it. And I think that is completely valid. Like some people are just not comfortable with it. And if they don't want to use it, like I'm not going to have an option where it's like, well, you're just going to have to adjust and use it. And that's what it's going to be. I'm going to make it an option on the site and not necessarily, it's not going to take anything over for me.
That sounds really fair. Oh, sorry. Rachel, I want to know your question, but I'll throw mine out there too, because maybe there's a logical order for them. I'm kind of wondering, just to back up, what are the kind of measures that you had to take to achieve HIPAA and FERPA compliance, even without AI yet?
Yeah, so I think I should back up a little bit. I'm really fortunate. My brother actually owns an AI company for legal. It's called Calitus. And he is very, very talented. And he's also the person who introduced me to the developers. And his background is legal. So that's what my thing to him was, because he's been kind of pushing me. He's like, AI's out there. We gotta get your platform on this. I think it's, you want to have the best and the greatest stuff and everything's moving in this direction and you're going to have to go. And I've said no to him because I'm like, no, I'm not willing to do it without HIPAA and FERPA, like as the cornerstone, because that is what the site is about. And I've always been on that as like an important piece. And he really listened to me and he really helped me find that person. And essentially, if you look at HIPAA and FERPA compliance, our main thing is we have protected information. And when you're using an AI platform, you're sending out and basically going to a public forum. You can replace a name and stuff like that. But then when it comes back and you have to replace it all, I don't know how time saving that is, right? Because you're going to have to remove all identifiable information. It's going to come back to you. And then you got to go in and you got to find all your identifiable information. You got to switch up. And then at that point, it's like, well, this isn't actually saving me time and I'm actually losing the point of the whole product in the first place. So for HIPAA compliance, what you have to do is be able to code it so it's de-identified for the person, and then it comes back identified. And that's kind of like a small piece of it. There's like 1,000 other safeguards, but I think that's the easiest one for people to wrap their head around.
That's even like, I'm just like thinking about all that. That's way over my head for sure. And I know that I've heard Ryan Farmer say, and I don't know if he did it on our podcast or maybe when I saw him present somewhere, that even when de-identifying, there's AI that can take de-identified things and figure it out. Like that even, like changing a name and putting it into ChatGPT. If somebody really wanted to use that information and piece together things that, it could be done to kind of, do that. Yeah. So I get that fear. When I'm putting things in, and I am doing that at times, like changing names, I'm like, okay, I changed the name of the school, but like there might be some little piece in here that could be figured out, through kind of some detective work on the part of AI to figure that out.
And part of that too is so when you think about like ChatGPT is not going to a specific server, right? It's like pulling everything from the internet and like scraping it and then taking that information and coming back with all the data from everything that it's scraped. Whereas when you're looking at creating a HIPAA compliant model of that, you're actually taking that data, you're selecting and picking that, and you're creating your own kind of server where it's going to pull information. You're not sending it out to a public server. So there is definitely a way to do it that is ethical, but it's hard. Like it's not a simple thing. And that's one thing that I've seen with all these AI companies that came out right when AI kind of was like hot. They just stuck ChatGPT on a page and then they're like, pay for it. And that to me is not, that's a whole different thing. And I was not interested in doing that because of the ethical considerations. So.
And you were saying that some people, are just not comfortable with it. And I can understand that from the perspective of sometimes you put things into AI and you get these hallucination type things, this wrong information back. So I can get how something like ClickReport, which is going to be more kind of steadfast and reliable, and that what's coming back, isn't going to be switching up scores or saying the wrong descriptive category for a test score or something, like that it's going to be accurate information. So I get that too.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing with the platform is right now, ClickReport is solving 80% of the problems that people are having, right? Like an AI model is, if you're trying to do the same thing, it's not like it's solving a different problem for the report writing. So ClickReport, just with the PHP coding, the traditional coding, it's solving that problem. So it's already saving that amount of time. Whereas the AI that we're going to develop to accompany it, that's going to be to solve new problems that are not easily accessible just with PHP coding.
I wonder if for people who might not be familiar with ClickReport, maybe explain how it differs and what it looks like when they might have it help with report writing.
Yeah, so I can do a demo. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Okay, let me log in real quick. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is kind of like the logged in side of ClickReport. You can see there's a lot of different options on here for different smart templates and tools. When I was on here in 2018, I think I went back and looked at the video and it said I had 24 different options for templates. So it's just funny now because I think we have over 80 different ones. So these are all the ones for the cognitive assessments, our achievement assessments, our adaptive.
Can we zoom in a little bit? Sorry, can we zoom in so we can see? I mean, I can kind of squint and see what they all say.
Yeah. I have my monitor, my computer monitor is ginormous. So sometimes I forget that it's abnormally large. Is that better?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, and then the other thing as an update from the last podcast is all these different tools. So there's all these different tools on the site also that help with different pieces and parts of the evaluation process. So I'm going to walk you guys through one of our cognitive SMART templates. We'll do the WIS since that's kind of the most popular one. So you'll select standard battery. And I'm just going to show you guys some of the features of this. As I type my scores into here, so I'm going to type in my standard scores, you'll notice that my descriptor and my percentile change automatically. And then I also have this bell curve down here that's going to change automatically for me. And as I type in my scores, after I'm done typing everything in, I'm going to go down and put in the student name and the student gender. If you want to report confidence intervals, you just click this box and it'll give you a box for confidence intervals. And then after I put in that information, I click generate narrative, and everything that I put within this table populates over to my narrative. And as you guys were saying, this has no issues with like hallucinations or anything like that, because the template itself is going to be the same each time. The pieces and parts that are going to change are based on what's in the table. So for instance, if I have a full skill IQ score of 120, that's 91 percentile and above average, it's going to place that within this SMART template. And it's also going to change the name and the pronouns throughout. And then it also does some other things as far as our visual spatial 70. I'm going to show you an example of some of the coding that's behind this. It's more than just like, okay, here's this template and it puts in information. It is going to change based on that information, but it changes in very predictable ways. So for instance, this area was well below average. And when there is a score that's within the well below average range, it lists that and then it gives an evidence-based recommendation based on that. And it also changes it to performance, suggesting that these skills inhibit learning and performance. If there's a score that is not within the below average range, it'll say facilitates learning and performance. So again, it's going to change in predictable ways, and it's going to place the information within the SMART template. So then after you have this information, you simply use these buttons to copy and then paste into whatever report writing system you use. And same with the table. For the table, you'll copy the table and you'll add it to your report. So it makes everything very simple from a reporting standpoint. And we also have the visuals. So we have the bell curve down here, a narrative summary, performance summary. And the site in general is going to work based on the different SMART templates and tools. And essentially what I tell people is for the tools section, you should click into all of them and see what makes sense for your practice. You might not use everything on the site because it's not going to match your practice. But if you go on and just start playing around with the different tools, you'll see what makes sense for you and the things that you'll actually use.
That's awesome. I can see what a huge time saver that would be. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah, and I can show you guys too. One of the ones that we get the most praise about is our behavior templates, because they actually allow you to compare two separate raters. And it talks about everything comparatively. So if I am going to give the BASC and I gave 2 BASC, I'll select 2 here. And then you can also, this is dependent. I try to code these to make sense for everyone. Kind of reports differently and everyone practices just a little bit differently. So for instance, I always put my adaptive skills and my social emotional in a different section. But if you don't, you can leave everything together. And for this one, same thing. I'm going to put my student name, select the gender. And then when I'm down here and I put this information in, when I scroll to the top, you'll see that these actually go to the columns. And then as I place information in here, you can see my chart is going to change, and this is nicely color coded. And throughout the site, you'll notice that generally everything is meant to be super parent friendly. And it's also written very parent friendly. So that's kind of one of the big things with the company itself. We strive to be very parent friendly. All right, so after I have that information, just as with the other one, you can also do your F indexes and things like that. Everything's going to populate over into this SMART template, and it's going to list who completed the different rating scales. Again, it's going to do all your names and pronouns correctly. And then it's going to talk about the different raters and how they rated things differently or the same. And then if there is an elevated area, it talks about what that might mean and what that might look like. Is there anything else while I'm on here that you guys would be interested in seeing?
I definitely have some questions that are popping into my mind. But if Erica, Rebecca, if you have anything that you see that you want to go through, then overrule me, please. Okay. Eric?
I was just going to say, what are some of the fillable forms?
Oh, yeah. So the fillable forms, these are things that once you'll download them onto your computer. So you'll always have them on your desktop. And essentially, this is the actual form that you can give to a teacher and the teacher interview form. So that it's just a place where it houses things in the same place. So instead of having to like look through your files, you always know that you have a teacher interview form that you can pull from the site. And it's also one that's like the teacher can, do this instead of having to print it out and do it by hand, which is always very much appreciated. And then most of these match the different smart templates as well. So after you have that form completed, you can go to its corresponding smart template that'll follow kind of that same format.
And does the information from what you clicked like generate over there, or you type it in or into the corresponding template?
Yeah, you type it in. So in order to be totally HIPAA compliant, which again is kind of our main thing, you do have to type it in because we don't have a database of information. We don't have a place where you can currently like upload it because of that HIPAA compliance piece.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I want to show you guys this testing observation one. This is one that we get a lot of good feedback on. And essentially for this one, this is like if you're giving an assessment and while you're sitting there and you notice, you might notice frustration tolerance or eye contact, and any area of concern that you see, you can click it. And then it'll ask you a little bit of follow-up questions. And then it'll ask you, did this observation indicate a valid representation? Yes or no? And then I also added one for virtual assessment during COVID. And when you generate the narrative, any area that you didn't click, it'll talk about that as, not being an issue. So like testing took place in a well-lit and quiet room with minimal distractions present. But if I were to click testing environment and would have said like there wasn't enough light, that sentence would change. But we did click frustration tolerance. So wherever it talks about frustration tolerance, that's going to change within here. And I think the biggest thing is that once you paste this information over, anything can be taken out. You can add anything to it. And this is kind of like a starting point, right? So obviously you're going to have your own test observations of the child, but there's going to be certain things that you're looking for each time. And this kind of helps you stay within those parameters. And then you can add like the really important stuff, right? Like exactly what was going on. So it kind of just frees up space in your mind to be able to make more specific observations.
Before I launch into some questions, can you show us the FBA? I noticed that there, and so I'm curious about that.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of our newer ones, actually. So for the FBA one, the same as all the other ones, you're going to input your student name and make your gender selection. So for this one, I've had a few very savvy people that create Google Forms, and they use their Google Forms and they kind of match the Google Forms to this template. And for this one, essentially, when you see student emotional behavioral strengths, you can click those different strengths. And I don't know about you guys, but when I do an FBA, I have like 4 teachers fill these out. So just to get a lot of information on the student. So I usually pull all 4 of the different responses, and then I go through and typically I have a ton of different things to select because I have so many people doing the forms for me. So for this one, it's going to talk about, despite struggling with problematic behavior, and it's going to talk about what those behavioral strengths are. Really, this FBA template is going to give you a good framework for your FBA. So it's going to have all the important components of an FBA that like you might not always remember kind of that format. And for me, I'm very strength-based when I'm doing my assessments, and that's always a really important one, especially when you're sitting down with a parent and you want to make sure that you're building that good rapport. You don't want it to be a totally negative experience. And I really feel like with FBA, sometimes the strengths are more important than the weaknesses, because it really shows us where we can take a foothold and like help that child along using what we know is a great thing for them. So then we have our descriptions of behavior. So for these ones, you make your selections. And then if you make a selection in a certain area, it'll drop down so you can select your frequency, duration. And for all of these, after you fill this out, it's going to populate up at the top for our narrative.
Is there a way to select like an other behavior or to add in your own definition if it's a behavior that's not listed there?
Yeah, so for all of these, it's going anything that you see here. So if I take this and, I can do no descriptions match, and that will give me a blank one. But for any of these, when you take this and you put it onto your Word document, you can add anything to it. So if we don't have something here, this can be a nice framework for you, but then you might need to input, the behaviors that you're seeing that we're just not going to have right here. And this one is new, and we have added some to it. So for all of these, I've had some people say like, oh, I haven't seen this behavior. Can you add it? And we'll add those as well. So again, really just following the feedback. And you can kind of see how this one's working as far as you're going to do your start behavior. After you have this section, you can select the setting. And all of these things, as you guys know, are very important for that FBA piece. And it'll talk about, it'll give you a little blurb, and then it talks about the location. Since I selected peers here, it says the behavior is most likely to be observed while JENNA is interacting with peers. Where obviously if I would have selected a specific adult or multiple authority figures, that's what would have populated into that sentence. And then morning and during unstructured time. So it says those two things as well. And then I'll talk about antecedents, so what happens right before. Again, I typically have 4 teachers do this. So sometimes there's not a lot of agreement about what happens right before. So this is where the clinical judgment of the psychologist is very important. And it's good to have multiple people complete these, because you can kind of really start seeing, okay, is there a pattern to the behavior? Is this happening more with one teacher over another? How does the student do in certain situations or with certain people? And then consequences and educational impact. So this is, what happens as a result. And you can click all of these. And again, it's going to give you that blurb at the top. And then it'll talk about those different check boxes. And then other potential variables as well. And then it has a section for prior interventions and hypothesis. So again, if you need to change anything in any way, super simple. After you paste things over, anything can be edited and changed, interpretations added, and all that fun stuff. Yeah, that one's fun. Thank you for letting me share it, because it's like brand new and I'm really excited about it.
Very cool. My mind's like spinning on all the.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, me too. And what I'm thinking a lot about, because I'm in school again, and among peers who are writing reports sometimes for the first time, slightly different in clinical psych than school psych, but still with some of the same, cornerstone pieces in terms of making it a useful, legally defensible report generally. And so I'm thinking about like potential pitfalls of less experienced school psychs who could possibly may not have the practice or the experience yet in like sort of creating their own reports that answer, that present the referral question clearly, that go over the history and the observations and have all the other pieces. Do you have kind of safeguards in there for information that you might not be adding, but that also still needs to be in the report, so that maybe less experienced or new school psychs know that they need to contribute somehow to the final product. You know what I mean? Am I making sense?
Yeah, you absolutely are. So to that, I would say everything on the site is you have to take the information and you have to like select what you're going to use, right? So like if you are going to use that strengths and vulnerabilities one and you want to list the strengths, but there's not like a product on the site that's like, okay, you're going to shove this to our predefined report. And to me, I actually can get on a major soapbox because I think it's very, very important for school psychologists to be school psychologists. Like, I do not want people using the site and clicking around and going, okay, like that's absolutely not what it's about. What I really want is I want someone to go on the site. I want them to expedite the pieces and parts that we can expedite. So like, you know, the he's and she's and the pronouns and the names. I want that to be done for you. Even like the percentiles, is like it's not gonna help you to go look up, you know, line by line, percentile, descriptor. What's really gonna help you is to take all that information now that's in a good format for you and to analyze it as a school psychologist. Because the site itself does not interpret. We're not interpreting that data for you. We're going to take your pieces and parts and help you get them where they need to go. But then you, as a school psychologist, you have to interpret that data. You have to be able to look at it and say, okay, here's all these strengths, here's these weaknesses. What does that actually mean for this student that I've been working with, that I have seen, that I have observed? What does that mean? And my goal with the site is that we can expedite those pieces and parts so you can do a lot of all that other stuff that makes you a school psychologist, because that's why you're there. And to me, that's the important part. Like, I want people to get to the actual real helpful piece of being a school psychologist.
Very cool. I have 4 questions for you. I'm just telling you so,
Yes.
you can budget your time. I don't want to hog all the things, but so when I'm thinking about like different, do you have different templates or different like frameworks? I'm thinking about like a district that needs like a neuropsych type of report or a PSW type of report. Or is there different kind of versions of different models that we might be using? Or how does that work? Or people would tailor that kind of after you cut and pasted?
Yeah, a lot of it would need to be tailored, but a lot of the tools kind of developed because of that. So like our strengths and vulnerabilities tool developed because I had a group of clinical psychologists saying, you know, that's just not how we write reports as clinical psychologists. We do it like this. Can you please make us something like this? So that strength and vulnerabilities one, that's kind of the one that people use for that kind of model. And a lot of clinical psychologists will use the site and they might not necessarily use the narrative. So they use the site to be able to get the table and the bell curve, and they utilize like those pieces of it. And then they write however clinically they're going to write anyways. But the time saving is really there just using those tables and the visuals. And like the strengths and vulnerabilities one will actually define everything out, which is really nice. So people kind of pick and choose what makes the most sense for their practice. And like I said, most people are not going on there and using every single thing on the site. You're going to go on there, you're going to see what works for you and really helps your personal practice. And then some stuff, you know, you're not going to use, and that's totally okay. It's probably wasn't developed for your specific practice.
Awesome. When you're including things like test descriptions, like the WISC is measuring this, the VCI is measuring this, does that come in directly from the manual? Is that like an interpretation that you're like, where does that information come from?
Yeah, so that is coming from those roundtable discussions, and it's coming from the manual and then being tweaked to be parent friendly. So everything has this central idea of like, we want parents to read this and not feel confused. Like, quite frankly, like parents and teachers, we really want them to be able to digest the information, because I think that's the most important thing, right? You're trying to get this whole group of people to be behind the student and really help the student, which means we all have to have the same understanding of what's going on. And if you can't read a report and understand it, you're not going to be able to do that part of it.
When I was seeing, you're typing in the standard score, the T-score, whatnot, and then it's populating the percentile and the confidence interval and whatnot. Is that also coming from the manual? I'm thinking about like things like the BASC, where the distribution isn't a normal distribution, and so sometimes you have a T-score of 50, which is at the 50th percentile, but in the other one of the other scales, like externalizing versus internalizing behavior, a T-score of 50 could be a percentile rank of 52 or 51.
Yeah.
Is that coming from the manuals then, or?
So the WISC and everything that has percentiles listed is coming from the manual. The BASC one, I actually don't include the percentiles on there. I include the asterisks for, clinically significant and things like that. So those, because of that challenge, they don't have the percentile listed.
Gotcha. And so the same would probably apply for the confidence interval, because that depends on like the reliability of that particular scale, right?
Right. So the confidence interval is a button, and you can select that button, and it just gives you the column to write the confidence interval.
Oh, gotcha.
So it doesn't calculate it because there is so much variance. And that was something that was requested from multiple school districts, because multiple school districts require the confidence intervals. And a lot of my district clients just ask, can we please make this like an easier process? So that's why we added that button.
Awesome. Okay, last question from me. I will probably.
You're good. No, you're good. That's great.
And then as far as purchasing this, is it by psych? Is there like a group discount if a district was like, I want to buy it for all 100 of my psychs in the district so everybody has access? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so we do have individual options, and the individual option is $30 a month, or you can do the academic year for $250, or the annual if you're like a clinical psychologist for $300. But we work with a lot of districts, so kind of we were like a lot of individuals, and I'm really, really happy that a lot of that's changing to districts. So we have over 160 districts that we work with. And we do pretty substantial discounts for our districts as well.
So you mentioned over 80 different templates or different products, I guess I would say. What are some examples? So I saw cognitive and behavior, adaptive. What are some examples of the other template areas that you have?
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my screen so I can really show you guys.
And then while you're doing that, I'll ask, do you have any thoughts about templates for NEPSI subtests?
Yes, I do. I'm actually working with, so I'm also a licensed psychological associate, and in North Carolina, I have to have a mentor, and he is helping me develop the NEPSI because I don't personally have experience with it. So I've had to tap on him and be like, oh, I need your help. So that is in the works.
Fantastic.
Okay, so a lot of the change too from last time is I put a lot of effort into these evaluation tools, because besides just going test by test, I wanted people to have other options and tools for different areas of the report. So like academic file reviews, I know that those are really important for any evaluation, or recommendations bank, social developmental history, this strengths and vulnerabilities. This is the one I was talking about, the people that are doing PSW, they'll use this one a lot. Testing observation, time sample observation. So for this one, this is like, if you're doing a time sample observation in the classroom, you can use this, and it has a nice timer on it. And it tells you when to, write in your observation. And then most of these, like this global assessment of functioning, I worked with a psychologist who asked specifically for this, our gap analysis as well. And most of these came from somebody being like, oh, I really wish you had this. And I was like, okay, well, let's do it. So that's a lot of the tools. And then we have our fillable forms. So I showed you guys those. Those are just going to be things that you can pull. And we're developing a few more of those now. These are relatively new. And these are just kind of like, again, it's nice to have everything housed in one place so you know exactly where it is. You don't have to go search through all of your files. So our cognitive processing, We have all of these different ones. So the XBAS, C-Tony, C-Top, DAC2, the DOS, KABC, the RAML, the WIPC, the WAST, the WISC, the WJ, Cognitive, and the ECAD. And something fun we're working on right now is Spanish assessments. So we are going to be adding a Spanish section to the site as well. And then all of our achievement ones. So the FAR, the GORT, the KTA, Wyatt, and then the WJs again. And then we have our adaptive and developmental, so the ABAS, the GP4, the Bailey, the JC2, and the Vineland. And these, anything in this section is the same as that BAS that I showed you, where it has comparison between raters. And then our behavior ones, we have the BASC, Connors, the EDDT, the MAS2, CDI2, CVRS, CEPI brief, and the BASC SRP. And then this one's for the Vanderbilt assessment. So this will actually allow you to download the Vanderbilt because that one's publicly available, and then also has a template. So if you're assessing ADHD, you can pull that one from the site. And then we have our autism section. So the ADOS is actually one of our more popular SMART templates. And we also have the ADI-R, the ASRS, the GARS, the SCQ, and the SRS2. The ASRS is going to have that same comparison ability as the stuff in the behavior section as well. And then one personality one that somebody asked me to make for them. And then we have our eligibility worksheets. And for these, we never want to predetermine anything, but these will help you walk through, like, does my information fit into a category that would be consistent with the federal definitions for these different disorders? And then we have a few motor ones on here and a sensory processing. And we also have a speech and language section. So I kept getting requests for speech and language. And so we developed a speech and language side to the site, but it is separate because it doesn't cost quite as much money because it doesn't have as much on it. So this is what's available for our speech pathologist. And so, yeah, that is everything on the site. I feel like that was a very long way of answering your question, Eric.
No, that was fantastic. I wanted people to, to get a sense for what they could look for. So
okay, awesome.
That's awesome. That was great. Thank you. Yeah, it really is amazing. I think most of us in the field will say, I love the kids, I love the teachers, I love the families, I don't love the paperwork, right? So
right.
Anything we can do that, allows us to, as Charles Barrett says, a day without kids is a wasted day, right?
Yeah.
So put our time into the kids in the school rather than putting our time into reports and paperwork. So
yeah, and I think that's something I touched on with the first podcast I did with you guys. And it was like, I was fresh out of school and I was so excited. And it was like, I got out there and then I wrote reports. And I was like, oh no, this is not what I want to be doing. Like, I want to be with the kids. And you can like see so much, right? I think especially coming right out of school, you're like, oh, I can make a difference by doing this. I can make a difference by doing this. And I really want to do this. And then you look at the thing that you're hired to do, and it seems like so many districts, I think especially now because there's a shortage, they're like, well, no, you have to get me the report. Like, that's what's required. Like, you're required to do this, and everything else is kind of like, special. And if you can, then good for you. And I just felt like I wasn't getting to do the special part enough. And that was really sad to me because I'm like, well, no, I don't think people went into the field going, let's write reports. Like, let's just it's different. Like, I like the intellectual side, right? Like the figuring out of the problem. That's a lot of fun. Like, it's like, I'm going to figure this out so then we can work on a solution. And like, that's great. But the actual sitting down, and when you're looking at how much time you're sitting there and doing things that just, they're not helping anybody, right? Like, is it really helping anybody to create this bell curve for 3 hours where you're like, you have to get it exactly right? And it's like, well, yes, it's going to help in the end. Like when you display it, it's going to be more digestible for the parent. But in that 3 hours that I spent doing that, what else could have I been doing? So that's really like my goal with the site. And that's really where it came from, was it's like, I don't want to write reports. I want to be a school psychologist.
I feel that when I was first to put my first real job as a school psychologist, I was in going into North Carolina, having done internship in another state. And I remember like the onboarding and some other teacher who was also like signing paperwork with HR was like, oh, what's your position? I'm like, oh, school psychologist. She's like, oh, you're a tester. And I was like, no, I'm not. Why would you say that? Like, I'm not a tester. And then very quickly I found out, no, I'm a tester. I was writing 120 reports in a school year. That's how they were using school psychologists in North Carolina. Maybe that's changed some, maybe not. And yeah, that's why eventually I was like, I'm not the best. Yeah.
So that's where I am. I'm in North Carolina. And that is, after I left Georgetown, I moved to Asheville, and I was the only school psychologist for 7 different schools. So I had all the elementary, the 2 middle, and the 1 high school by myself. But I had created ClickReport, and I was like actually able to handle it. Like I was like, oh no, like I could handle the caseload, but still it was like so much that it was like I could handle it, but there still wasn't a lot of time left for the other stuff. And I think that's really important too when someone's trying to assess what they really want to do as a school psychologist, is really looking at the environment they're going into, because those 2 experiences, like coming from Georgetown and then going to that area where I was the only one for 7 schools, they were completely different. And I would say like I preferred the Georgetown with like a nice group of school psychologists to talk with and kind of feel supported. And it was a very different experience between the 2.
All right. Well, I'm looking at the time and thinking that we need to kind of wrap up. I'm wondering if anybody has any last minute questions, comments. Eric, Rebecca, you have anything to add? But I'm just, again, continue to be blown away. And I think it's a real service you've done for our field to be thinking about this stuff and figuring this out. It's awesome.
Thank you guys.
I'm really impressed with the growth and the extra utility of the products and the templates that you offer. Just, it's really impressive, and it seems like so useful. I was reading some of the testimonials on your website. It's really just wonderful. I'm excited that you're out here and you're doing this work, and that school psychologists can utilize this service to be more efficient and also just feel better at work, feel like they're doing what they wanted to be doing with their career and their skills and strengths. So yeah, I don't have anything but just excitement for you, and excitement to get to know ClickReport now in 2024.
Thank you.
I'm also wondering too, have any, like, think about in the field of school psychology, we have all these big companies. There's like Pearson and WPS. So have any of them ever like reached out to you? Or I'm just wondering why they've not been ones to step up and do something like this, or maybe they've tried and they're just not very good at it. I don't know, but I'm just
So yeah, I have thought about that as well, and I have talked to a few people, and my take on it is they're not school psychologists, right? So it is very hard to develop something as like, if you were just a developer, you would miss the mark. And I actually think one of the bigger companies did try to do it, and I looked through their product and they missed the mark. Like it was like, you could just tell they weren't school psychologists. So I think it's really tough to develop something without actually being in the field and knowing and understanding the actual requirement and all the different requirements. Like there's so much, right? So I think that's been the issue for them.
And then I don't think, any one publisher could cover all those various assessments from different publishers as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is wonderful. And I think it's amazing that you've been so successful. And I just, applaud you. And I hope it continues to to blossom and grow as a company and the service for school psychologists. So
thank you so much. It's definitely been a wild ride, but I'm super grateful for it. And I'm really grateful for you guys having me on. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So I'm excited. We're going to be, anybody watching, we're going to be posting some invites and links and stuff to future episodes. We've got a couple things in the work, but finding our groove here, getting back into the school year. So I know we've got some things. Lloyd Donders, who is a special education parent lawyer, will be coming back and joining us for an episode in October. We're going to be talking some dyslexia. So we've got some exciting things, I think, coming up that people will be interested in watching. So I hope you follow us on all the things and be ready to go when we are. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.